So, with the release of Black Bolt and White Flare, one of my favorite decks has gotten a decent amount better. And that deck is Alakazam EX. We're going to get into it today. Hello everybody, I am Santa, this is the Poke Workshop. I have a new desk, everything's great. We're going to get into this deck profile and figure out exactly what new cards came out that make this deck so much better. So, we're going to start off with the Pokemon, as one does. We are running 3 Alakazam EX. This thing, very, very fun, very, very cool. Not the strongest Pokemon in the game. Its Mind Jack attack does 90 plus 30 for each Pokemon on your opponent's bench, which is pretty cool. But the main reason that we want to use this guy is its attack Dimensional Hand, which allows you to attack for 120 even if he's on the bench for 2 Psychic Energy. So that is basically what the entire deck is about. And we've got a whole slew of support to help make that happen. Because we're playing Alakazam, we are also playing 2 Kadabra. I don't like playing 3, and I've thought about cutting this back down to 1. However, it is somewhat useful with its teleportation attack. You can do 30, which is enough to knock out a Badoo. And you get to switch it with one of your benched Pokemon. Now, we are also running 3 copies of Abra. If you are running Alakazam, it should stand to reason that you are also running Abra. You could also run the 40 HP one. I forget what the ability is called, but it basically says if it's in your active slot, you can shuffle it and all attached cards into the deck, which is pretty good. So definitely worth mentioning. I'm just personally not running it here. Now, it can be really tough to accelerate 2 Psychic Energy, so we are running 2 copies of Natu and 2 copies of the Evolution Xatu. This thing is super cool. Love this shiny out of Paradox, out of Paldean Fates. Very, very fun. So, this thing says it's Clairvoyant Sensibility. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy card from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon, which, as we've mentioned, Alakazam kind of wants to sit on the bench anyway. If you attach an energy to a Pokemon this way, draw 2 cards. So, this is very, very helpful to give us a bit of a draw engine in the deck. And because Alakazam wants to sit on the bench, we are running a whole bunch of things that make it to where bench sitting is good. We're running 2 copies of Jellicent EX. If you are unfamiliar with what this card does, when it is in the active slot, your opponent cannot play any items or tool cards from their hand. Very, very good. Very important. Very oppressive. I don't like running Badoo in this deck, because if Badoo is using Itchy Pollen to attack, that means that your Alakazam is not attacking. However, we do still play 2 copies of Frillish, which has Oceanic Gloom for 1 Psychic, does 20 damage, and item locks your opponent. So, still have some item locking potential even if we don't evolve into our Jellicent. Now, speaking of things to put in the active position, we are running 1 copy of Mimikyu. I've considered running 2, and you definitely could. You could also run Night Stretcher to bring this guy back. I'm kind of thinking Night Stretcher will end up in this list, probably on the 2nd Kadabra slot actually, but its Safeguard ability prevents all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks of your opponent's Pokemon EX and V. Very, very good. V cards don't really exist in the format anymore, but it is still useful. Basically just means you can't take damage from EX Pokemon, except for this guy. This guy, with his Demolish attack, 140, is not affected by any effects on your active Pokemon. That's not why we run it, though. Cornerstone Stance, prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. Very, very strong. This thing is basically an auto win against Gholdengo. And occasionally your opponent will have a single prize Pokemon to damage your Mimikyu, or a Pokemon without an ability to damage your Cornerstone. So we are running 1 copy of Monkey Dory as well, who's a Drenabrain. If you have a Darkness Energy attached, you can move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponents. So, that is our slew of Pokemon. Very, very fun. Mostly Psychic Pokemon, and again, we don't really use the Cornerstone as an attacker, we use him mostly as a wall. There are some good walls in this deck. Moving on to the items, we definitely run a decent slew of them, and they are very, very important to the deck. Now, this is not a deck that has a whole lot of speed to it, so we have to do our best to introduce speed into it. We're running 4 copies of Nest Ball. Search your deck for a basic Pokemon, put it onto your bench, shuffle your deck. Running 4 copies of Ultra Ball as well. This is nice to get you your evolutions. This can get you into your Jellicent. This can also get you into your Frillish, because we do run Buddy Buddy Puffin, but Frillish has 80 HP, not 70. Now, you may notice there's no Pheasantipity in this deck. I don't have a lot of copies, so I just forgot to put one in here. I would swap out one of these Ultra Balls for a Pheasantipity to make your Nest Ball a little bit stronger. So, definitely bear that in mind if you are building this deck yourself. You will want a Pheasantipity, although you don't need it, because since you are putting a bunch of walls into the active position, a lot of times your opponent won't take that knockout to be able to give you your Flip the Script ability. So not vital, but definitely worth looking into. We're also running 3 copies of Buddy Buddy Poffin. I didn't max out on this solely because the things that you can grab with Buddy Buddy Poffin are Mimikyu, Abra, and Natu. And once you've got all 3 of those set up, you don't really need more copies than that. And it's just, we don't have a whole lot of targets, so we're not maxing out on the Buddy Poffin. We are also playing 2 Rare Candy. Again, not maxed out on Rare Candy. Ideally, you would love to Abra into an Alakazam straight, skipping the Kadabra step. However, we do run some things that can get us there faster, not just the Rare Candy, but the Rare Candy lets you take one of your basic Pokemon, put it straight into a stage 2 if it is in your hand. Very, very strong. Turn your Abra into an Alakazam. Wham, bam, thank you, Alakazam. Running 2 copies of Earthen Vessel. I've toyed with 3. I think it's a little bit too clunky, especially with some of the new support that we have that came out recently. So I have found 2 Earthen Vessel to be very, very good. We're also running 2 copies of Counter Catcher. I really like running Counter Catcher in this deck, specifically because Arven makes it very, very good. You will see over there in the corner we are running a bunch of copies of Arven. The Counter Catcher is super, super good if you start to fall behind in prizes, if you can't set up a wall adequately. Being able to gust up your opponent's stuff is very, very good. And it can set you up with some really sneaky plays that we'll talk more about later. We're also running 2 copies of Pokegear 3.0. This is a great card. Normally, if you have been following along, I'm not a huge fan of the look at the top or look at the bottom blank amount of cards from your deck, reveal a blank, add it to your hand, but supporters are so vital in this deck that we actually do kind of need to run the Pokegears. So we're only running 2. I didn't really feel like maxing out, so we are running 2 copies of that, and that will do it for our item count. Moving on to the supporters, as I alluded to, we are running 4 Arven. This is probably one of the best, if not the best supporter in the game currently. You could argue that Professor's Research is really strong as well. We're not running Research in this deck, but Arven searches your deck for an item card and a Pokemon tool, reveals them, puts them into your hand. This is very, very good. So this can get you a Buddy Buddy Poffin and a Technical Machine Evolution, which you will see that we do run here in this list. Very, very strong card. 90% of decks right now, you need to run Arven, which is unfortunate, because if you are someone like me who likes to build multiple decks, you run out of Arvens very, very quickly. Moving on, one of the best new supporters that this card has now, came out recently in Black Bolt White Flare, specifically out of White Flare, is Hilda. We are running 2 copies. Search your deck for an evolution Pokemon and an energy card, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Super strong. Searches an evolution Pokemon, as the card says. This can search you an Alakazam. This could potentially search you a Kadabra as well. A lot of times this can search you out your Jellicent once you have already set up your Alakazam. Very, very obnoxious, very nice, very strong for consistency. We're running 1 copy of Boss's Orders. You could potentially run more. However, because it is a supporter, you are only allowed to play 1 supporter per turn. So using that on the Boss's Orders sometimes is not necessarily ideal. In an ideal situation, you would love to use either Arven or Hilda. So running only 1 boss, because we do play the 2 Counter Catcher, we have multiple gusting options. Running 1 copy of Iono. This is just a great card. This could also be argued to be one of the best cards in the format. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it onto the bottom of their deck, excuse me. Then each player draws cards for the amount of prize cards that they have remaining. So if your opponent has taken a couple knockouts and you have not, Iono is very, very good to reduce them to a much smaller hand size, while also being able to cycle through a bit more of your deck. We're also playing 1 copy of Crispin. I don't find this thing to be absolutely insane. However, it is very, very good to be able to cycle energies onto your Pokemon. Search your deck for 2 basic energy cards of different types. Very important. And attach 1 to your Pokemon and put the other one in your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this is very good to attach a Darkness to your Monkey Dory, add a Psychic to your hand, use your Xatu to attach the Psychic, and then you still are able to attach another energy. So Ideally, you attach a Darkness to your Monkey Dory, use your Xatu to attach the Psychic to your Alakazam, draw 2 cards. Ideally, somewhere in there you have a Vessel or another energy, and you can attach that to your Alakazam and start swinging. So Crispin, very, very good in this deck. We're running a few tools, nothing too crazy. We're running 2 copies of TM Evolution. Like I said, I'm not super crazy on this card. Ideally, in this deck, you would love to rare candy into your Alakazam instead. However, sometimes that's not an option. TM Evolution is really, really nice to be able to evolve your Abra into a Kadabra straight from the deck, which is very, very cool. You don't have to have it in your hand. Then on the next turn, if you can find your Alakazam, you can go straight into it onto the Kadabra. Very, very good, very strong things. We're also running 1 copy of TM Devolution. I find in this deck, TM Devo is very, very good. Slightly obnoxious, very strong. This devolves each of your opponent's evolved Pokemon by putting the highest stage evolution card into your opponent's hand. So a lot of times what you can do is you can use your dimensional hand to set up 120 damage on something. Next turn, you can either boss or counter catcher something else into the active, set up some damage on there. A lot of times they won't be able to break through your Mimikyu or your Jellicent or your Cornerstone wall, so they're just kind of sitting there stuck with the damage. Next turn, you can TM Devolution, devolve 2 of their Pokemon, pick up 2 prize cards. Very, very strong. Love Devo in this deck. We're playing 1 Stadium. We are playing 1 copy of Artisan. Very, very strong. You could definitely justify potentially dropping like a Hilda for a Colress's Tenacity so that you can search out the Artisan easier, as that searches an energy card and a Stadium instead of an energy and an evolution Pokemon. Very, very good. However, once per turn, search your deck for a Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box, slap it onto your bench. This is very, very good because, as mentioned, your Buddy Poffin can't grab everything for you. Your Freelish is a little bit too tall. Your Monkey Dory is a little bit too tall. So having the Artisan to be able to snag those straight from deck is very, very good. Moving on to the energy counts, we are playing 6 Psychic Energy. I found that that is sufficient. You want to be able to power up some of your guys. A lot of times this is not what you will be using to power up your Alakazam. However, it is nice, as mentioned previously, to be able to use Natu and Xatu. Attach, draw 2 cards, manually attach for turn. Now your Alakazam is ready to swing. Very, very cool. And we are running 2 copies of Darkness Energy. We only have the 1 Monkey Dory, but having 2 Darkness Energy ensures that one of them doesn't get prized. Admittedly, we only run 1 Monkey Dory, so if the Monkey Dory is prized, that kind of stinks. However, being able to have the Darkness Energy in this deck makes it to where we can use Crispin for energy acceleration, which is very, very, very strong. And the final card in the deck is one of the best cards in the deck, Neo Upper Energy. This is attached to a Stage 2 Pokemon, provides every type of energy, but only provides 2 at a time. So, big plays that you want to do with the deck. You use your Hilda to search out your Alakazam and a Neo Upper Energy. You can either rare candy, or if you have TM Evolutioned onto an Abra, then you can just evolve your Alakazam straight. But having Hilda to be able to search the Neo Upper Energy is very, very massive. So, super, super good card in the deck. If you have the Neo Upper Energy in hand as well, you can attach that to your Alakazam. Use your Natu, or your Xatu, I keep getting those mixed up. You can use your Xatu to attach your Psychic Energy to something else, i.e. maybe a Freelish or a Jellicent to get ready for something else. Very, very strong to be able to set up those item lock and tool lock plays. So, this is how I'm playing Alakazam EX right now. I think it's pretty good. I think it's very, very fun. Again, 120 is not the strongest attack in the book, but you're going to 3-shot a lot of things. You're going to 2-shot a handful of things. And with the Monkey Dory being able to spread damage back, it does help quite a bit. And frankly, a lot of times you can take the knockout with Dimensional Hand quicker than they can knock out your Mimikyu, your Ogerpon, your Jellicent. Because Jellicent does have pretty decent HP. It's not just an item locker. 270 HP is pretty strong. So, that is how I'm running Alakazam EX. This is one of my favorite decks. I've been wanting to update it for a while, and this is what I have landed on. So, if you love Alakazam, drop a like, drop a sub. Thank you so much for being here. I have been Santa. You have been awesome. This is the Poke Workshop, and this has been my Alakazam deck profile. Hope you guys liked it. Thank you so much. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.